Since we've been looking into the Fire Emblem franchise, thanks for watching, by the way, I've mainly been doing it to look at the positives of the series because it is one of my all-time favorites. So maybe it's time to get a little bit negative. Luckily though, I think popular opinion is with me on this one, so let's talk about Fire Emblem Fates. It just wasn't received well by the fan base. It sold really well, but with like the 3 games, I think those numbers are a little bit inflated, and then characters started showing up everywhere and they're not that great. It started the conversation that, you know, we want representation from the earlier titles in the series. Okay, maybe that's more a me thing. But I think we should critically discuss why the fanbase generally doesn't really care for Fates. My name is Kevin, and for Beyond Polygons, this is why Fire Emblem Fates is a bad Fire Emblem game. For some people, remember, this is all clickbait. We'll talk about a few of the good things anyways, okay? Roll the intro already. Before the game even starts, players are brought to the Corrin creation screen. Now, creating an avatar has been a great addition to the Fire Emblem franchise. Players can put themselves in the role, like I do, or they can create, you know, some sort of OC character that takes part in the story. But unlike Robin from Awakening, Corrin is also the main character. She is really the only lord in the game. This wouldn't be a problem, but when you're like me and you try to play the role, they're just too involved and there's too much character kind of put into them that I feel like I can't relate to them. And trying to put your sort of own character into it doesn't seem that easy either. The entire game is based on Corrin just trying to pick a game at GameStop. I mean, torn between 2 kingdoms. Families, even. Okay, the kingdoms who are run by these families have been eternally at war. And why are they at war? Because Corrin's Hoshido dad was murdered, and he was taken in by the evil-looking and actually evil Nohrian king, Garrett. It's a pretty weak basis for a plot, because Corrin is just left to decide which family they love more, the family that birthed them or the family that raised them. It's not the worst reason to sell the game from either perspective, but the first 6 chapters are shared regardless of which version you play, and gives everything away. Garrett is clearly corrupt or something, because he's asking Corrin to kill prisoners in like the 2nd chapter. You see the sword Garrett gives Corrin? Like, even I knew this was kind of messed up looking at other, you know, famous blades in the series. Something is clearly kind of demonic about it. Hoshido, on the other hand, seems so perfect and beautiful. It has all reason for sympathy because this evil sword is used to kill the queen. Spoilers, I should probably have mentioned that. But this is the 4th chapter of the game, and it's pretty much the emotional peak of the entire story. I mean, the scene when Corrin becomes a dragon, it's actually like, it's pretty crazy, but like, it's all within, it's even before the game that you purchased. What? I'm all for branching paths, but come on, how are you supposed to pick Nohr when you already know this about the characters? I mean, I picked Nohr first time because it's a harder game, but regardless, when both sides have enough reason to be picked, and we'll get back to that, you kind of know you're not getting the full story when you just purchase one of the games. So simply, from my perspective, as a player, I stopped caring about the story because it was obvious from the beginning. Sure, chapters can have their own little plot to themselves, and it's interesting how some maps are shared across which version you play and you tackle the chapter from a different perspective. However, there are just no outstanding plot twists that the game kind of builds up to. You kind of knew who the final boss was. Each chapter feels like it's trying to explain why it's even important. Oh, this guy might know something. What about this guy? Oh no! We got ambushed! And even the driving force, Corrin, sucks. They want everyone to get along, and they don't want to bring harm to anyone, yet they're the subject of the entire story. I have a hard time relating with them. They come off as both whiny and confused about the feud, but yet have this unrelenting white knight heroism that just comes off as naive. He is both the problem in the first place and the solution. Corrin is one of the worst lords character-wise, and the rest of the characters all suffer because of it. I don't get why everyone loves them so much, but you know what? Maybe that's the point. Maybe you want to have that waifu simulator, and much like Robin before them, Corrin can marry whoever they want. So Fire Emblem Awakening, which came out before this, offered this new but not really new marriage and baby concept. Fates simply just took it to an extreme. Corrin can marry whichever opposite sex character they want, even their siblings, because something something multiple wives something something. How are you supposed to sympathize with them again? Now Corrin can kind of get away with it, but then everyone else can pair with whoever they want, and that's kind of crazy. The positive side to this liberal take to the supports, it adds a lot to the gameplay. Pairing up is more consistent and advantageous, and these new friendship and partner seals allows characters to actually gain the class of their spouse or their best friend. It's a cool concept to allow every unit to literally be any class in the game. If there's something Fates does right, it's having full control over how your team grows and which classes they become and how they all evolve throughout the adventure. But since Nintendo expected players to play the game 3 times, you can pass skills down from prior playthroughs. It's honestly done very well, but why are we doing it? When there are literally hundreds of support conversations to listen to, I found myself skipping through them. I didn't care to get them because why am I making super units? A wide majority of characters are simply known for a shtick or a joke, like Takumi is just constantly untrusting of Corrin, Arthur is a hero McJustice face,
Stay safe, citizen!
and Camilla is tits. And she doesn't stop showing them off. Like it's literally part of her joke, and why is she so flirty with Corrin when she's his sister? Her sister doesn't, I'm not saying all the characters are bad, nor all the support conversations. Heck, even Camilla has some character. It's just a shame that they make boob jokes all the time. When the game is this chocked full of support conversations, it definitely brings down the average because a lot of them aren't that great. In the playthrough I used for footage, I married Orochi, and all the conversations were her telling me about Queen Makoto. And that's cool, but I kind of wanted to know why we were going to fall in love and get married in the first place. Also, 6 of the characters are from Awakening. Like, the babies are also rushedly explained, and it seemed forced to just keep it like the last one. But Awakening worked because at least Lucina was like explained in the story. Am I being anecdotal? Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people could find a bunch of decent support conversations, and one ends with a love potion thing, and the internet blew up for a day about it. It's a game. But even Azura, who's the closest thing to the second lead, is nothing more than "You are the ocean's great waves." Get used to hearing that. Oh, wait a minute. It all makes sense now. This game needs a remake, by the way. But yeah, Azura's weird, and at least she's interesting, and Corrin and her are the only real middle characters to the feuding kingdoms, and when you play Revelations, which is the 3rd game, you realize that Birthright and Conquest are a waste of time. Much like Pokemon Crystal, Emerald, and Platinum, fans should have realized that the 3rd game was the best value. If Nintendo expects players to play all 3 games, the games need to be fairly different. But Revelations is literally just everything combined. I can get that they wanted players to see the story from both sides, but remember when I said that the first 6 chapters kind of give it all away? Well yeah, that didn't change partway through this video. You also need to buy Conquest or Birthright to even have an option to purchase Revelations, which is technically DLC or a digital add-on. It feels a little scummy to me because it is the definitive version to play. So that's another $20, Nintendo. Here, take my money, I guess. I'll concede that playing at least one of the other versions first is recommended, but then before you even start Revelations, it has the gall to suggest that you should play both sides first. Nintendo and Intelligent Systems, whoever was in charge of this, I already bought your game. Stop asking for more money. See, with Pokemon, the versions are fine because they're standalone games with minor differences. You don't need to buy both games, plus like the whole social aspect of Pokemon. But to expect players to purchase multiple versions, it feels wrong. And all this clamoring for good sales numbers gets in the way of world building. A big issue is the lack of a sort of map screen. Heck, the continent isn't even named. It's a big deal in the series, okay? How are we as players supposed to respect the political drama of this if we can't even see where the lines are drawn? Is that weird at all? Pavise Productions did a great video on it. Links in the card in the corner. It's this corner, I think. And linked in the description. Every chapter seems to start with a neutral territory along the border or something. But like where exactly? The world building in Fates just, it's non-existent. There's like 8 kingdoms too, and I totally forget why they're involved in this. They're kind of all just neutral parties, so like what's the story here? When you meet both sides in those first 6 chapters, you can understand how Corrin could pick either side, because the retainers and your siblings are all nice to you when you agree with them. But it doesn't make any sense when Corrin clearly wishes that they didn't have to fight at all. And then it becomes more unbelievable when every other unit is just so fond and protective of Corrin that the player really starts to feel coddled. Like, it's like when you're starting the game, they're in love with you and they're so happy to be around Corrin, but if you don't pick their side, I can't believe you, Corrin, you're a traitor. Like, they're just so, it doesn't make any sense. I didn't write any of that down. It's just the worst kind of protagonist when everything just centers around him. It just perplexes me that Xander and Ryoma are these hard-nosed military types, but they'll do anything for their bestest sibling ever. I know all my main gripes seem to stem from the storytelling, and I fully agree that Fates is fun to play, and the characters aren't like horrible. They're just, you know, I think they're forgettable. That's me. I don't know. As someone who likes to read the story in RPGs, hard to imagine, I know, I feel like I can go back to a lot of the older games and still feel that nostalgia, and Fates just doesn't do that to me. Awakening did that. I want to go back and play Awakening. Even Echoes was really good. Because making characters any class you want and getting all the skills, it is fun to make some super strong unit, but why would I bother when the game is expecting me to drop them and start another playthrough in what is effectively the same game, and I have to spend $20 more on it? Even after all the playthroughs and you've collected all these skills from all the different classes you've made these characters over time, what are you gonna do with them all? Buy more DLC and use them there? It just feels like such a gross cash grab. Fire Emblem is supposed to be about the storytelling, and there's room for the supports and the marriage and the babies, but if the game seems to want to shoehorn in features and nice visuals and a great soundtrack, okay, the game is honestly, like, it looks good and the music is good and it is well made, but I still gotta buy more of them? I feel a little cheated when both Awakening and Echoes, which were the other 2 games that came out around the same time, were just both better games that had DLC that I kind of felt like buying, but I didn't kind of have to get the whole story. And sure, buying the add-ons is cheaper than the price of like a full game, so in reality it comes out to like the price of 1.5 games. I still think it's worth criticizing. It felt like a cash grab and it forgot a lot of what Fire Emblem is rooted in. You know, the story, the characters, and a decent plot. I can appreciate simple characters, but I feel like it cares more about the strategy than the role-playing. And that's up to interpretation, but I think Fire Emblem was supposed to kind of be somewhere in the middle. And maybe a lot of the community kind of agrees with that. And if not, comment below. Maybe what we need to do to kind of explain this a little bit better is continue down the path of the other marriage-based Fire Emblem games. So next time I want to look at Fire Emblem Awakening to also see how it really did save the franchise. Because we keep saying that, I keep saying that, but I don't know if people really grasp what it did right and why it holds up better than Fates. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more of these videos, and hit the like button as always, and leave a comment down below simply saying Nohrian scum. That's how I know you got to the end of the video. Thanks for watching.